it was mentally hard. Like it
Hmm.
was like at that time, Anderson Silva was like, untouchable.
Welcome to the No Good Podcast, everyone. Today we are joined by legendary Canadian MMA fighter Patrick Cote. Patrick, first and foremost, how are you and your whole friends and family doing during the pandemic right now?
First of all, hi. Thanks for having me. I'm doing very well. Actually, I can't complain. I have two company who's doing pretty well. I'm still working on the French media here. I'm the French voice of the UFC since 12 years now. I'm like the French Joe Rogan. So I can't complain. Yeah, I'm the owner of a sport complex too. That's the thing that it's closed. But instead of that, my kids are healthy. My wife loves me, so that's good, man.
Hey, you can't ask for anything else. You can't ask for anything more.
Exactly.
I just have to ask you, being as a non-fighter myself and really started getting into UFC and MMA, what made you to decide to become a fighter? What clicked for you?
Uh, Actually, it came just like that. Seriously, because when I was young, I wanted to be a professional golfer. I was playing on the junior rank, very high level in golf,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very very expensive. And I'm from a very poor family, and one day it was like too expensive to still continue to play golf, and I joined the army. I started to box in the army, and I got that very fast. That was easy for me to learn how to box. And after that, I just discover the jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and just put everything all together. I fell in love with the sport, and yeah, the rest is history. I try, my first fight, the amateur fight, I got destroyed, but I fell in love with the sport. and and after that, I made like 15 years of my life for on a professional fighter.
Hmm.
Wow.
What was it like being a fighter in Canada when there weren't many shows in your own province or country early on in your career?
Yeah, first of all, it's if you want to be a superstar in Canada in mixed martial art, forget it. That's George. It's George's world.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, that's one thing. The other thing, it's especially in Montreal. No, I don't want to say Montreal, but in entire country, people are very, very. They are very good fans. They are very supportive. Every time I fought in different places in country and in Canada, now I receive a lot of
Mm.
support. That's amazing, especially when I fought in Montreal and at the Bell Center. That was just insane. Um, it took time for us to have respect from especially the U.S. Fighter. At the beginning, like guys like Tito Ortiz, Mike Hughes, they were laughing about us. They were laughing about Canadian fighter. So they still think that maybe we will live in ice house or igloo or something like that. I don't know. It's lack of knowledge about our country, especially from the not everybody, but a lot of American people don't know the story about Canada now. But
Hmm.
I don't know, man. We have rough winter, so that's why we're tough, man. I think that's why we're
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, for sure. You started off in UFC during its mainly its start. What did you notice a big difference as UFC started to grow in terms of the fan, the audience, and everything?
Oh, big time, man,
Yeah.
big time. My first fight in UFC was in UFC 50. In 2004. That was in Atlantic City. Uh, you know, the weigh-in was like 50%. That wasn't very popular to go at the weigh-in and stuff like that. It was like 10 or 12 shows a year. So that wasn't like today, but I'm very proud that I did participate about you know the evolving the sport. The sport is growing, still growing, but the last 10 years, it was insane.
Hmm.
It's completely different. I've been there with in the good year of sponsorship.
Yeah,
In
for sure.
2007 until 2010, we made a lot of money with sponsors, and after that, it had a drop. But yeah, man, it's I saw the evolution of the sport. I was part of it, and I'm pretty proud of it.
That's awesome, Patrick. One thing you mentioned there is like your first fight in Atlantic City with Tito Ortiz, which was pretty big at the time, obviously, and a pretty big fighter, I think, for a guy your size, right? You were kind of, fighting, I would say maybe above your weight. You might disagree, but what was that like getting the opportunity for your first big fight to be with such a big star that really helped grow the sport into kind of what it was?
Man, I was totally above my weight class. You're right, man. But he was so big, and he was a big light heavyweight already. In light heavyweight, he was a big dude, and he had a big head, man. He was huge. And the first time I saw him live at the hotel in Atlantic City, I was like, oh shit. And then my coach was like, okay, you got something now. And I said, man, fuck, it's big, man. And but they gave me the opportunity to join the UFC by the big door. My first fight in the UFC, first fight in the UFC in the main event against Tito Ortiz, a guy who were my idol at that time. This guy was on my screensaver, and every time I was opening my computer in the morning, he was there. And a couple of days after, he was at the other side of the cage, wanted to take my head off. So it's insane, the situation, how I did join the UFC, but, we talk, all together each other today because, we say yes at that fight. I was supposed to fight Marvin Eastman on the prelim of the first fight of the pre-card, where there's nobody in the stand. And 4 days after, I was in the main event against Tito Ortiz in front of like 20,000 people. That's just unreal.
Yeah, it was definitely like, I think that was one of the more pivotal moments, right? And you started to see a lot more Canadian fighters, guys like Sam Stout, Mark Hominick, a bunch of other guys started to come over into the big stage of the UFC. One thing I noticed when I was coming up, trying to become a professional fighter myself, when I was training with the guys over there in London, Ontario, and Adrenaline MMA, is a lot of guys had to go out. They had to go out even to the States because Ontario had difficulties with MMA. What do you think? What do you think about like the landscape of up and coming MMA fighters? Because to me, at least, I mean, it just seems like it's sort of a hard path to get to.
It's hard. It's not an easy job. It's a fun job, but it's still a job, like DMX said. But you know what? It's hard. And especially at that time, it was Sean Tompkins was there, one of the best coach, of the MMA history. God bless him. He's passed away now. But, he made out such a great fighters, Chris Odoreski, Mike Hominick, Sam Stout, and a lot of guys after that, they came in Canada to train with Sean Tompkins. But you're right. If you wanted to train with a high level fighter and, upgrade your game, you had to travel. It's still like that. It's still like you have to go left and right, and you always coming back to your main team. But I always say that traveling to train, it's very good. It's very benefit because you see a lot of different things. As long as you're faithful of your team, I'm very I'm very focused about that. For me, it's very important that you be faithful to your team. A lot of fighters, they don't have a respect of their team, and when there's something it's not working about their fighting or career, they're gonna switch up. You know what? You have to remember where you're from and who did help you all your career. And I was with BTT for all my career, and funny story about that. I fought for the title in 2008, and after that, I lost 2 fights in a row, and the UFC kicked me out. And a lot of people was like, "Oh, maybe it's time for you to leave BTT. It's not good anymore for you." I was like, "Man, I went to the top with those guys. I went to the top. I went to the title fight in the UFC with those guys. That's maybe not them the problem. It's maybe me. I have to switch something." But I did travel around the world to train. I went to Matsera training with Renzo Gracie. Not the rivalry of Brazilian top team and Renzo Gracie, but you travel and you learn a lot of things from around the world, and at the end of the day, you're coming back and you put all
Hmm,
together.
for sure. Who do you think was your toughest fight and why?
Um, oh man, there's a lot. It's for different reason.
Hmm.
Anderson Silva was very very hard because it was mentally hard. Like it
Hmm.
was like at that time, Anderson Silva was like untouchable, and he wasn't hitting me hard, but he was always hitting the right place all the time.
Hmm.
Very very accurate. And every time I went forward, it was on my side. I went on my side, it was on my back. I was, man, stop moving, man. So that was complicated. And there's no easy fight. It's the fight that was the more nervous about it. That was Ricardo Almeida. The
Hmm.
fight before I got the title fight, because the last loss I had before that fight, I was against Travis Lutter, exactly the same kind of fighter, and he unbarred me in first minute.
Hmm.
So I was like, man, shit. I was in the co-main event UFC 86. I didn't want me to happen, but I was a different fighter at that time. But that's probably the only time I got very nervous before a fight.
Hmm. Hmm. You were talking about Anderson Silva. I wanted to ask you, did he have like any of that like aura in him during his fight? Like I know that Dustin Poirier was saying how when he first fought Conor McGregor, there was like this aura in the ring where that guy, when they're such like a big legend and has that big following, it puts a bit of that mental into you. Did you feel anything like that when you fought Anderson Silva?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially at that time, he was like
Mm-hmm.
on top of the food chain. He
Hmm.
was, but he was a nice guy,
Yeah.
and very respectful. We had like a nice face off at the weigh-in, and he bought me before the fight. We bought all together, and you know what? That was complicated, and those kind of fighters, with the aura, you have
Mm-hmm.
to you have to just to go and just to understand that, man, this guy is made of blood and
Yeah.
and, and skin like me. But it's hard, and we did study that, his the last opponent of him, and all the fighters we saw before, they were already losing before the first round because
Mm-hmm.
they were so intimidated. So we were like, it's not gonna happen. We're gonna go. If you knock me out, I will not remember it anyway. So let's go. We're going forward, and we'll see what's gonna happen.
uh, I wanted to ask you now, the Ultimate Fighter, it's coming back soon, and you've competed in that format. Can you tell the people what it was like for you?
Oh, that was a great time.
Yeah.
I did coach the Ultimate Fighter 2 in 2013, but in 2006 I was in the season 4 of the Ultimate Fighter right there that season. And for me, I had like 26 years old, no attach, no wife,
Hmm.
no kids. In 2002, when I had 22 years old, I was in the army. I went to Bosnia, for 6 months. I
Hmm.
served my country in Bosnia. So being locked down in a house with 16 dude eating like 40 steak, steak like crazy every night, like a 40 bucks steak, training twice a day with Randy Couture, George Saint-Pierre, Mark De La Grotte, that was Matthews, and Chuck Liddell came to, Rich Franklin, twice a day, living in a million mansion house. I was like, man, you can complain. I can I couldn't complain. So for me, that was really nice. And I
Yeah.
always said that, not now, but a couple of years after that, I was like, if they ask me to do it again, I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And but I did it as a coach. It's very different.
Okay, okay. I wanted to ask you a bit about the process. How long do you guys like film? And like how many fights do you guys usually have within that time frame?
That was 13 weeks. No, no, sorry. That was 6 weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was 6 weeks. And after that, on TV, that was 13 weeks. Exactly. So we fought maybe every 3 days. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
But there was two different weight class in my season. There was
yeah.
welterweight and middleweight. I was a middleweight. So you had I said only, but you had only to fight 2 times in the house to make to the final.
Hmm.
So it's like that.
Okay, okay, I see. How much like how did you find that? Did you like usually 3 days is very little? Like was it okay? Like if you were injured or something?
Yeah, that's the thing. I had two decisions, but I went the first fight against Jorge Rivera. I won by decision, but I had I was sore a little bit, but I had
Hmm.
any injury. When I fought Edwin Dewey's in the semifinals, the second fight, he had a huge cut on his forehead from his first fight,
Hmm.
and like 30 seconds after the first round, was already bleeding up. So yeah, it's kind of it's the chance you have to do it. It's not easy, but right now to go in the UFC, if you don't go by the contender, it's the easiest way to go by the Ultimate
Hmm.
Fighter. It's really really hard to get in the UFC now.
For sure.
Patrick, you were talking about Anderson Silva, and obviously in that fight, I think you were the first one, at least in the UFC, to take him to the third round. I think I remember you held up the three fingers and everything like that. But I wanted to ask. I mean, I'm a little bit unclear on this. So when you fought him, was your knee already injured, or was your knee injured like by Anderson, or in the fight somehow?
No, both he didn't injure me. It wasn't injured. It's a logo in the center of the octagon. I slipped from on the logo, and my leg went hyperextension, and my knee just
Oh.
blow out in the second round. And the last part of the second round, I felt my knee like dislocated maybe 2 3 times. And when I went back in my corner between the second and third round, I said to my coach, I said, "Man, my knee's fucked, man. I don't know what to do." And he said, "What do you want to do? You want to throw a towel? You want to?" I said, "Listen, I'll go. I'll try to land a Hail Mary. I'll try something." And the first try, I went and I put all my weight on my right leg. I felt my knee, my shin, him side to side, and I was everything just blow up, and I couldn't continue. So I was like, "Man, are you serious, man? The biggest moment of my career is gonna end by an injury." I was like, "Man, please knock me out, submit me. I don't know, but not like that, please."
Mhm.
So that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I feel like all of Canada was kind of, they had their hearts breaking with you. You were like, because you were such a massive underdog in the fight, and to see you do so well was very, very inspiring, right? And then to be obviously alongside George St-Pierre potentially as a champion, it would have been amazing for Canada. But either way, you represented your country extremely well. Another thing I
Thanks.
wanted to talk to you about as well was, you talked about fighting like way above your weight class with Tito Ortiz, and then you go, to middleweight, more or less your normal weight class, and then eventually to 170, kind of towards the end. What made you decide to go down to 170, and do you wish you had done it sooner?
Uh, a lot of people ask me that, but I went I went through the title fight in 185, so I was like, man, no, no, I'm okay with the 185 run I did. Uh, why I dropped to 170? Because of the knowledge of everybody, because of the knowledge of nutrition, of cutting weight, and taking your weight back after a weigh-in. Because my last fight, 185, I was against Alessio Sakara here in Montreal, UFC 154, and we were on the same weight. I knew that he was bigger than me, but the day after inside the octagon, I saw him. I was like, man, that's not the same guy. That's insane, man. I was like, that's his brother. He has a twin. I was like, it was all out of my mind. It was so big, and I won the fight, but I was like, okay, it's those guys at 185. They're so huge now. So if you have the same skills, the size will do something, during the fight. So I started to train with my nutritionist, Jean-François Gaudreau, who did an amazing job about my weight, about the knowledge of nutrition that I didn't have before. And I dropped by 170. And after that, I was that guy to make that impression. I was a big 170. I was fighting around 192, 193 pounds. So I was able to gain a lot of weight after the weigh-in, but I was able to come to compete and perform too.
Right. That sounds really, really intense. I just want to ask you, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming fighter who wants to break through here in Canada, go to the next level?
I always say that my biggest skill is I was able to have a good entourage. I always had good people around me. Losing, winning, they were always there. So that's the thing. That's when you are a professional athlete. When everything is going well, you have a lot of friends. But you will lose one day. Trust me, you will lose, and maybe not the way you want to lose. And you'll see your real friend, and you will see your real trainer partner. You will see who support you. So that's you can train anywhere around the world. There's good guys, good training partner anywhere around the world. But I think it's very important to find your base, find your team, and not only training partner, but it's kind of another family. You spend so much time with your fight team. You travel with them. It's kind of like another family, and you have to find that.
Yeah, it's definitely always tough, tricky, especially in such, I guess, a big world, but also, and that's especially for you at the time, like a very undiscovered world. Like it wasn't like anywhere, a big household gyms per se anywhere, but obviously now you've transitioned, right? You're no longer a fighter. You're pretty much, I would say, you are a member of the media now. So what's that transition been like for you?
I was ready. I made that decision, and that's the beautiful the beautiful thing about the way I took my retirement. It's I left on my own turn. Nobody kicked me out. It's not because I wasn't able to compete anymore. It's not because I got injured. It's because I was enough. And that's a dangerous sport to go inside the octagon if you only want to go at 50% or 70%. It's so dangerous. And for me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna choose my health. I'm gonna choose my family now because it's a very selfish sport. You have to think about yourself when you are a professional athlete, especially in mixed martial art. You have to be very, very selfish if you want to succeed. So after 15 years, I was like, listen, I compete in Ultimate Fighter, I coach Ultimate Fighter, I fought for the title, I fought in the main event, I traveled around the world. I was like, I did everything that it's possible in that sport, except being a champion. But at the end, when I lost against Cowboy Cerrone, that was like the fight in my mind. I was like, okay, if I go and I win against Cerrone, I will go for another run at 170. Maybe I have another title fight. I didn't have a good night. He had a good night. I lost the fight, but after that, I was like, okay, that's enough. Maybe one more fight. I wasn't sure, but the fight against Thiago Alves, I knew it before it was my last. Even with the win, that will be the same decision. That was enough, and I was ready to take my retirement. I prepared my after career since 5 years, before I took my retirement. So I was ready to do it. It's not easy, but it's easier when you're ready to do it.
Wow. I totally respect that. If you get all those accolades and you feel like you reached that position, then why not quit on your own terms? But I heard you mention DMX earlier in the pod, and my listeners would be so upset at me if I didn't ask you, Patrick, what's in your playlist, man? What music are you listening to these days?
Oh man, I listen seriously. I'm not a one style kind of guy. I like to wake up in the morning and just put some classic around the house, just taking my coffee and relax. I like to put some. I really like some old dance music. I'm cheesy like that, like Mr. Vane and all those things. It's kind of cheesy, but no, my kids love that. We put very loud in the house, and we dance all together. I'm a big fan of old rock too. If you remember, almost all my last entrance songs was old rock, like Kiss, Twisted Sister. That was nice. So I'm a big fan of that too.
Nice, nice. This is the No Good podcast, so we gotta ask you, what is something that everyone loves but you don't? What's no good to you?
Olives.
Nice.
Fuck, I
Nice.
hate olives, man. Everybody asks me. Everybody don't understand that, but that's probably the thing that I hate the most in the world. I hate that, man. I hate that. And I always say to my wife, I said, if you want to make a joke one day and I'm sleeping and I have my mouth open like that, and you put an olive in my mouth, I will kick you out. Trust me, I will do it. It's how I didn't like olives.
Oh man, that's so hilarious. Just before we go, can you let our listeners know where to find you and what do you have coming up next?
Listen, you can find me on my social media. I'm pretty active on Pat Cote MMA on Instagram, Patrick _ Cote on Twitter. I'm very active in that. Patrick Cote with the little blue check on Facebook. If you speak French, I just launched a new book called Inside the Octagon. In French, it's Dans l'Octagon. It's a book who's talking about the sport. It's a Bible of instruction and all to understand the sport with respect and understand how it's hard to have succeed in that sport. So if you speak French, just find Patrick Cote Dans l'Octagon. You will find it, and that's it, man. It's good.
Awesome. Patrick Cote, thank you for taking so much time out of your super busy schedule to come sit down here with us today at the No Good podcast. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Awesome. Until next time, it's the boys from the No Good podcast. We'll see you soon.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.